Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to talk about graphing using our graphing calculators. So we're just going to do one example today. We're going to graph this on our graphing calculator. I'm going to give you a lot of tips and tricks for graphing on your graphing calculator. So to graph this, remember that f of x is really the same as y. So I'm going to hit y equals to graph this. And I'm going to type in x to the third minus 57x minus 56. Now, when I hit graph, we might see something. In fact, we do see most of the graph. But if you look on the paper here, you'll see that the x and y axis count by different numbers. So we're going to talk about the window screen. So if you hit window, we're going to change a lot of the numbers here. We're going to use x min and x max. This is the x min and this is the x max. We're going to look on the x axis and we're going to make sure that those numbers are typed in, and they are. Now x scale is asking you what labels are we using here. So if you look carefully, our graph is actually counting by 2. So our x scale is 2. Now our y min is not negative 10, it's negative 500. Our y max is positive 500, so we type in those numbers. And then what is our y scale? What are we counting by? We're counting by 100s. And then we don't change these bottom three, x res or delta x or trace step. So now when we hit graph, we should see the whole reason they gave us these values is because that should show us what we want to see in this graph. And hey, look at that. We have a much we have a better idea of what this graph looks like. But I still don't have any way to take this from here and put it on here. I could use the trace button, but the trace button ends up giving us a lot of decimals. And we don't really want decimals, right? This grid doesn't have decimals. We'd just be guessing, right? So we're going to use the table option to do that. So we're actually going to go to second. Above window is table set. And we're going to use, where do we want our table to start? Well, actually, let's have our table start at negative 10. So this is asking us where is our x-axis starting? Negative 10. And delta table means in the table that they give us, what do we want each x value to go up by? And 1 would be good because we have negative 10, negative 9, negative 8, negative 7. And then independent, auto, or ask. So if we change this to ask, we can pick any x values we want. Right now, if I go to the table, you'll see all the x values are filled in. But if I change this to ask, now my table is going to be empty and I can just type in whatever x's I want. But we're going to keep it on auto for now. And we're going to go through and we're going to see if we can use any of these values here. Now, the most important values are going to be when x is 0 and when y is 0, because those are intercepts. So luckily, we see some zeros here. That's going to make things, that's going to help us out here. So we're going to make as many of these points as we can. I'm going to start with all the zeros because they're the most important. So negative 7, 0 is right here. I see negative 1 is also 0. I see 0 is negative 56. That's like right there. Let's go through if we find any more zeros. There we go. 8 is 0. Okay. So with just that, obviously, we don't have a good idea of what this graph's going to look like. So we're going to put as many of these points in as we can. I know in the past you might have learned to do 4 or 5 points. That works when the graph is much smaller and it's symmetrical. This one's not symmetrical, so we want to do as many points as we can. So negative 10 is negative 486, which will be like there. Negative 9 is negative 272, which is like there. Negative 8 is negative 112, which would be like there. Negative 70, we already have that one. Negative 6 is 70, that's like there. Negative 5 is 104. All right, now last thing we're going to do before we're done here is we're going to use second calc, and we're going to talk about minimum and maximum here. These extrema here, this maximum and this minimum here, probably don't fall on x equals 4 or x equals 6. They don't fall on nice values. They probably fall in between. And I'm just curious what they are, so I'm going to show you how to find that. So let's do second calc maximum. So second calc, and then number 4 is maximum. So now when you get a cursor on the screen here, if we're trying to find the maximum, I think it's around here. So we're going to need to hit enter 3 times. We're going to put the cursor a little bit to the left of where we think the maximum is, and we're going to hit enter. We're going to hit the cursor a little bit to the right of where we think the maximum is and hit enter. And then the third time it says guess, we're going to put the cursor right where we think the maximum is and hit enter. It's only going to look between those two, the left bound and the right bound. So I think it's right there. That's pretty close. So the maximum is 4.35109.63. Now I'm going to try to put that negative 4.35. I'm going to try to put that on the graph just because I want to do some due diligence here and make sure I include all important values here. All the zeros are important, and then minimums and maximums are also important. So I'm going to do it again down here. I'm going to hit second calc, and this time I'm going to do minimum. Left bound is put your cursor a little bit to the left of where you think the minimum is, and hit enter. Right bound is put it to the right of where you think the minimum is. I think the minimum's right there. Hit enter. Hey, look at that. 4.35 to 21. 4.35 to 21. So it's like right there. All right. So after I've made as many points as I can, I'm going to do my best to graph it, hitting as many dots as I can. Now, most of the time, these graphs go on forever and ever, so we want to make sure that we put arrows on both ends. And then you usually want to label it. You can write the whole equation here, but labeling it, you can just put f of x on it if you'd like. And then to actually answer this question, sometimes we might have some follow-up questions here. This one specifically says, write the equation of this polynomial in factored form. So to write it in factored form, we need to find all the zeros, which we have. The zeros are -7, -1, and 8. And we need to write all of those. When they're all set equal to 0, it's actually going to be the opposite value. So it's going to be x plus 7, x plus 1, x minus 8. So this is the same as this. This is in factored form. I don't know how to factor that, but it turns out this is the factored form because right here, it tells us that this is where it's going to hit the x-axis, -7, -1, and +8. So that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching.